I think this is the hardest year ever to pick 1 through not only like what was 10 before, because there were always 1 or 2. You knew you could always put Kansas at the bottom. You just could, with all due respect. That's not the case anymore, and I think I have them too low. But there was also always that, well, you could always pick Oklahoma because most of the time they won it. And then you'd have Oklahoma State or Baylor or TCU, and then Texas would make a push, although they haven't won the title in the Big 12 since 2009. So I'm going to give you the team that I picked, and the chat room, fire away. Craig and Paul, fire away. Garrett, you too. At number 14, West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm between 2 teams at 14, and West Virginia is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Who's the other one?
Cincinnati.
At number 13, oh, my God, we have a great, great following there, and Juan is going to be so angry. I have Houston.
Again, I'm not like saying Houston should be 4th, but I think they'd be. I still think they're a little bit in a better situation than Cincinnati and West Virginia.
I don't know. I'm torn on the Cincinnati and their comparison to Houston, for example, or even to West Virginia. Like, I don't think that they're going to be super good, but I don't know that they're just like plummeting to the very bottom right away. They do have a lot of questions, though. But as far as West Virginia goes, I mean, I could see them finishing like a game above Houston or something like that. But I'm not going to argue them being last. Like, I understand where that's coming from. And then you said, 14 was Cincinnati, or 13 was Cincinnati? 14
West Virginia, 13 Houston.
Okay, 13 Houston.
And then I think this is, 12 is Cincinnati.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's all fair. I mean, that's kind of, I think, everybody's MO right now with all of those teams. I mean, Houston's won a lot of games here the last couple of years, guys. I don't know if you realize, but they replace a lot, too.
Yep,
they replaced Tank Dell. They replaced Clayton Tune, who had been around for forever. So, yeah, I mean, all those teams are coming off of, obviously some major changes in one way or another, or, just disappointment in West Virginia's case. So that's all fair, those 3 being at the bottom,
Juan
I think.
just sent me the teary-eyed emoji. and I'm sorry. I love you, Juan. But, again, I honestly think this could be 6 or 8 that are way out of whack here. At number 11, Iowa State.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to go for them. I think that they could be better, but looking at their schedule and how they've been, like 11 though could wind up being a 7-5 team.
No, absolutely could be. Yeah.
But I don't see them contending for the title.
No, they're not going to contend for the title. I think they could sneakily be better than everybody expects, though, because I don't think they have a very hard schedule, and I think that this is like the prime opportunity for Matt Campbell to go like, oh, y'all thought I couldn't coach anymore. Y'all thought I didn't know what I was doing, and you didn't realize that, like, no, we had some moments last year that didn't go our way, and, some things that we needed to sharpen up, and now that we have, we're going to – because, like, look, they're not – like, when they lose games, it's not they lose games because they're bad. They lose games that's a grind, that's, just like one thing doesn't go right. But, like, when you play Iowa State, you know that you played Iowa State, right? They are a grind to play, and they're not fun to play or to prepare for. And so they just, on that fine line that they walk as the program that they are, last year they just fell to they fell to one side more than they had, maybe the previous couple of years. But, yeah, I mean, are they going to be better enough to where I put them, like, near the top? No, not right now. So that's fair. Like, I might have them maybe a couple spots higher, debating that. We could get into that at some other point, but that's fair to have them lower.
So we've had West Virginia at 14, Houston 13, Cincinnati 12, Iowa State 11. And I think this is too low. But I don't know who I was going to put in front of them, and it might be 3 teams that could be behind them at the end. I have Kansas at 10.
Kansas is going to win some shootouts this year.
This was hard for me. That's normally where they are because 10 in the conference, but this is so hard for me, and I may be way off on them. If I am, I apologize to Jayhawks Nation.
Look, they've got a stud quarterback
Yes,
gamer
they do.
in that can keep them in any game and can make all kind of plays and is one of the most fun players, in my opinion, in the country because of what he's doing based on what's around him. But I still think they're a year or so away from being able to regularly, on the other side of the ball, get in front of somebody and stop them. I don't think they're going to get in a whole lot of people's way, but I do think that there are going to be some teams contending for the conference title that are going to go, if not for that stupid Kansas game, we'd be in this deal right now. So, yeah, I think Kansas is going to be as good or better as they were last year. I think maybe even a little bit better.
Me picking them 10, Craig, it makes no sense in a way, and I get that because they have an absolutely badass at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason anybody's picking them there. Let's be honest. It's somewhat of Lance Leipold, but it's really just Jalen Daniels that's really driving that home because everybody saw what he was able to do when he was healthy last year. Now, of course, there's a belief in Leipold as well, but you got to have the star players, too, to actually go out there and do it, and they do have one in Jalen Daniels. I need to backtrack on Iowa State. Their schedule's harder than I remember looking at a while back. It's a bit more difficult, so that actually reinforces maybe having them a little bit lower coming off of a disappointing year. But as far as Kansas goes, yeah, I'm not all in on like they're going to run wild and Leipold's the new king of the conference or anything, but definitely reasons for optimism and definitely not at the back of the pack like they used to be. But how high they can go, I'm not quite ready to think that Jalen Daniels is so good that everybody's ready to come along with him, right? Like I do think there is that element of retooling the roster that they're still in the progress of, that it doesn't necessarily stack right up with a lot of the teams that'll be near the top. But he's good enough to make some plays to overcome that, so they'll be fun to watch.
We've lost 17,000 subscribers in just the last 5 minutes discussing this. At number 9, Brigham Young.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've got a lot of questions. Keaton Slovis, obviously, at quarterback now. You've got the changeover on defense. Sataki had to take the reins last year because it got so bad, and obviously had to make the tough decision to move on from somebody who had been on staff, a close friend for a while. And I don't really know what to expect for them as far as the transition. You hear about the schedule that they played, but still, this is a different animal, being in a conference and having those stakes and just the week after week after week nature of it. So I think they're, perhaps as well prepared as you can be to make that jump, but I still feel like all four are going to have an adjustment period. So yeah, I would have them in the second half of the grouping.
Number 8, and this is against the grain because of how good they have been, although last year was like very much Baylor in Oklahoma State. At number 8.
I may be different. I'm circling them as a surprise team.
I agree with you, Craig, because these are the type of teams that Mike Gundy just lays back in the weeds and says, y'all say whatever you want to say. I'm going to sit here.
Against the world. No one believed in us. David Smoak said we're 8th.
Alan Bowman's not been healthy, blah, blah, like all these things.
All
and
right.
then all of a sudden, it's going to work out for them somehow.
All right.
So,
all right.
I give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't have them like going and winning the conference because I think there's too many questions. They had a lot of turnover as well. Alan Bowman, can he prove that he can stay healthy? Because, if he's healthy, that's great. But that's also been the case of his career. But I do believe that Gundy's still a fantastic football coach, and I do think that not having much in the way of expectations, kind of like Iowa State, is actually a very good thing for that program, that they can potentially sneak up on some people or be better than expected. But not enough shown to fully go like, oh yeah, they're going to be a top 5 team. So in the middle's about right for them.
All right. Number 7, UCF.
I think that this is kind of just like a trendy pick because somebody's got to be good out of those 4, and they've got their quarterback back, and he was fun to watch, and Malzahn's cool, and they just seem to have a lot more confidence and a lot more, I guess, questions answered right now than perhaps the others do. So that's one where I don't want to act like I have a great feel for it. I know that the thing to do is pretend like we know everything, but I don't have a great feel for how good to expect them to be. And that's not a cop-out. It's just, I know they'll be good. I know they'll probably be better than the other 3, but, how good? I don't know where I fall in that. So, again, in the middle, probably about right for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's right in the middle of the pack. That makes a lot of sense. They're to me, Gus Malzahn, the head coach and quarterback, that's the best combination of the incoming, then I think
BYU has a different quarterback, Houston has a different quarterback, and Cincinnati has a different quarterback.
Yeah, so as far as
a coach.
And a different coach. So those two being aligned as the ones coming in would make me think they finish higher, and I could see them pushing into the top 5 of the league. I'm not going to go ahead and say they can win the thing. I just don't. I don't think they're going to have that kind of depth.
All right.
Right off the bat in the conference.
So far, no one's lost their mind on me in the chat room, and that's fine if you do. Some say maybe higher or lower, but nothing like, oh my God, I'll never watch again when Smokey's on there, so watch tomorrow.
Quit worrying about what everybody's worrying about.
No, I'm just at number 6, Baylor.
That's fair. I mean, I think that might be a team where you get the most varying degrees of opinions on where exactly they are in the grand scheme of things.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde the last 5 or 6 years.
8 games at home. Right. And this is a team who has been historically not the most fun to watch when they're not in Waco for the fans. It's, especially when they go to Morgantown. They don't have to do that this year, so that's great news for them. They kind of got the Lubbock bug off their back last year. They don't have to go back there. They do get Texas at home, which is a huge benefit, I think, of the team that's probably, the best in the league in most people's estimate. Nations going in. So, they have a good opportunity with 8 home games.
I'm not going higher with that until I'm proven otherwise. No, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Six is a good spot for them.
All right.
I think 6 is a fair spot. I think they should make a bowl game. If they don't, then there's got to be some questions, and there's got to be some reasons as to why. Like both starting quarterback candidates got hurt, and something like that. Because other than that, then they're starting to go down a different direction than they need to be going. Is that fair to say? Mm-hmm. And I love Dave Aranda, but I get how great 2 years ago was, but last year was not fun. And if you're to follow that up after all these changes that you've made and you've flipped all your coordinators now at this point, something's got to move forward this year, in my opinion, to show that there's continued growth, right? Now, as a team, they do have a favorable schedule with 8 games at home, but they could very well be 2-2 after the first month because Utah is not a gimme. Texas is like their first Big 12 game. That's not a gimme. And I do think if you look at Vegas, I think they're right there in like that 6-7 win range.
Yep.
And I do think they're going to be a team like that's kind of straddling probably that 6 to 8 win range. I think that having the home games helps, but again, one of them's Utah. I don't feel great that you're winning that. One of them's Texas. I don't feel great that you're necessarily winning that one either.
Especially early on in the year.
Early on, when everybody's still healthy and all of that. I think their trip to UCS, a really puzzling game. Like, that's one where I don't know quite what to expect there.
First Big 12 home game, so that's right
out of
the
the gates,
one you want to draw for anybody, I would think.
We have 5 more to get to, and I want it. We got time.
But there's a lot of questions. Like, there's reasons to be optimistic, like the amount of home games. But at the same time, like, those aren't all layups. And so 6, 7, 8 wins in that range is fair.
Or the Pac-12 deal. All right, number 5, TCU.
Might be a little low, honestly. I mean, I know that they turn over a lot, though, so that's the reason why they're expected to take a little bit of a slip. Be fascinating to see Kendall Browse's offense and a new quarterback at that. They've recruited really well. 5, I might bump them up like a spot or 2, but I can understand. They're not going to be lower half of the conference.
No, they'll be fine. They got to go.
I think they're going to reload better than expected.
Got half of Alabama's roster,
but not just jumping right back in the title game.
Number 4, Texas Tech.
Might be
Man,
too
you
low.
took a big spit.
I don't know. Like I like 4. I think top 4 of the conference is where they need to live. I think that's where I have them. I think
that's making sure that they're better, but it doesn't mean that you need to know where they are. They enough where they're going to be in the chance to play for a Big 12 title. But I do think they're 4. All right.
Yeah, I think 4. They've got a lot coming back, like 5th years, guys coming back. A lot of players who probably could have left that came back because it just kind of shows you the culture of the program, and that's a sign of when guys are like, no, I want to be back for another year, and they had a lot of that. Obviously, your quarterback's back. Shuck's got to stay healthy. But beyond that, they don't have, I think, a ton of questions. So I think that's more than fair.
All right.
But there's a lot of hype for them. Like, that almost seems like given the amount of hype this offseason, like they should be in the title game. But 4 is right on the cusp of that, so that's fair.
I struggled putting Tech ahead of TCU only because of what TCU did. It's not trying to say last year was any kind of a fluke. It absolutely was not. They were really good. But I have them at 4. Number 3, Oklahoma.
They have a soft-ass schedule, like a total pillow of a schedule. I can't believe the Big 12. Like, for anybody who wants to talk about the Big 12 and it acts, to grind, like, show them the Big 12. Show them the Oklahoma schedule for the final Big 12 year. They have to be better, I would think. And yeah, I think that the talent part of the equation, I think, is a bit of a mystery still. But they've hit that heavy, and I mean, they've seemingly done everything they can do to try and get on track. So fascinating year upcoming for Venables.
Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa are their non-conference games. Remember, they lost the Georgia game because of joining the conference, so that was wiped out. With all due respect to who they're playing, that, of course, what I'm saying is Big 12, it doesn't matter if you're 3-0 or what in non-conference play.
If they had a harder schedule, I wouldn't necessarily have them there, but their schedule is really soft, and so I think that they can take advantage of that. They should take advantage of that with the talent superiority they should have over most teams in the conference.
Despite last year being an absolute disaster.
Right.
At number 2, the defending champion Kansas State Wildcats.
Yeah, I don't see them slipping back very far. I mean, I do think that they're going to have to overcome, especially on defense. I don't really see them missing a beat, even though they did lose a stud defensive end. But I think that's kind of who they are personality-wise. I think that making up for Deuce Vaughn is going to be an interesting two-person shuffle, but if they can get close, that can help them consistent to take some more pressure off of Will Howard. But, make it for Cade Warner and some of the guys that they lost on offense will be interesting, but I think that they can do it.
Yeah, I think Kleiman's one of those guys that we all just sort of expect him to establish the program the way that he did previously, in the FCS, and just kind of have that ball rolling from here on out. That very well could be the case. I don't think you just, no matter what you did in the transfer portal, just hop over Deuce Vaughn's loss. I mean, I do think that's felt, but maybe only early on. Will Howard back. I mean, yeah, there's star power that's missing, but like TCU, I think that they've got a good hold on, the direction of the program and kind of what they're doing. So I don't expect much of a fall off.
All right. And then that leaves hype of all hype. But they really do have an enormous amount of not just the talent, but they seem to have gained last year some grit, especially on defense. The young, talented offensive line, a year older. Yeah, they will miss Bijan and Roshan. And I don't care how many 4 or 5-star guys they have back on the roster, and they do. I understand. Texas is always going to have great running backs, but I just feel like a lot of it's because of the unknown with Oklahoma. So much lost with TCU. This is not a yeah, but one. I think they're one. I also know that can they fill the expectations, not just from me, obviously, but from everybody else, because I think a lot of people are going to have them at number 1 in their poll. And this time it's not just because their name is Texas.
Yeah. By the way, Bill Connolly, these are his tweets from today on this very topic. Just finished tomorrow's Big 12 preview, and man, if you blow this one, Texas. Okay, here's what he says.
He's right, though.
Yeah, I agree.
OU's got upside but no depth. KSU's got the line play but might lack upside right now. OSU and TCU might have the depth, Tech too, but defense is sketchy. I like UCS roster, but they collapsed late in 2022. And Baylor's depth on D and offensive line is perilous.
Yep.
I agree with all those points. I mean, OU did attack the portal quite a bit this offseason, but, I mean, the depth part is exactly right. Like, hey, that's great. Your starting defense and offense are better, but, like, you're 2 and 3 deep, and if injuries hit, like, that's a very fair point. KSU, I think a lot will revolve around Howard and how good he is, But, yeah, they've got the returning O-line. I mean, everybody's back. BB leads the way there, an All-American, one of the few All-Americans in the Big 12 last year, and probably the top guy, actually, maybe along with Bijan as far as the accolades that came his way. So, yeah, he's a strong anchor for a O-line. Who's also there, our buddy from Midway, Torrey Leviston's been there for this entire
the
run.
offensive lineman,
But yeah, they do have some questions. I agree with all of that, like especially about some of the depth concerns there, but particularly about Texas. I think that it's theirs to lose. It really is. I mean, you look at that roster, and I know we can do that game every year, but truly, if you really do look at their roster and what they put together and the depth and all of that, there's really no excuse. Like there's really, I mean, beyond somebody.
I would think if they don't fulfill what should be the expectations legitimately, then you have to know that as the season progresses, if they're not in the middle of it, like not just lagging around, I mean, in the middle of it, like even leading the way, then my God, the heat down in Austin, which is always hot, will be even hotter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to make a coaching change heading into the SEC, and I don't know how many worthy candidates there are out there right now that would be any better than, Sark, but I'm totally with you, though. I mean, I do think there will be a lot of rattling the cage and a lot of message board fodder for sure, because they should be. They should be squarely in the mix. I think the schedule's fine enough. You play Alabama early on, but that doesn't affect you as far as the playoff or your conference, right? So, even if you lose that game, that's not that big of a deal because it's Alabama, and you'll probably be better for it in the long run anyways. You win that game, then, oh, my God, the hype train will be hard to control. But I know every year people can probably say this and probably have to some extent about, it's Texas and they're so talented. This is different, though. This really is, and it's not just because it's the last year, but they don't really have that many weaknesses if you look at the roster, and they do have some momentum, and they do have a schedule that's manageable. So, and then as much as anything, you look at the others, and they have question marks galore, like pretty much all over the place.
As I said, yep.
And so, I think that if they don't win it this year, then there better be a damn good reason why, because they probably should.
Yeah, okay,